Well, it is Wednesday at 2 p.m. and we're doing a live show, and this is a unique live show I'm trying to do where I bring on some expert in guiding. And I want to have more professional guiding seminars given by people who are experts in the guiding field. And today we have Mark Hirst, whose company is Lapin Koski Kolu. Hopefully I pronounced that right, Mark. He does IRF courses, ice rescue courses, rescue 3 classes. He does all kinds of instruction around the world. He's sort of an international man of mystery and somebody I really look to as sort of an expert in training guides. And he's what's the word? Non-instructor. What's that called, Mark, when you teach instructors?
In
Assessor.
terms of the IRF, assessor, that's the one.
Assessor,
Yeah.
yes. You're an assessor with the IRF, which means you can train and certify people to teach courses. And
Yep.
he's my assessor. He's been helping me along with my instructor journey. And he's today going to talk to us a little bit about the International Rafting Federation and their guide training and education courses. So, Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to go in the background.
Okay. So, hey, Zach, thanks for having me back. It's great to be back on the Gear Garage. I follow you guys a lot. For those of you that don't know me, you might notice a non-American accent here. So there might be some terminology that you guys don't necessarily understand. I'll try my best to keep it simple. I'm actually based in Finland, so I'm in Europe. So it's now just gone midnight. So that's why it's so dark around me. I'll try my best to stay awake. But yeah, let's just have a chat about the IRF system and how a workshop runs. And as always, it's great to get the questions and hear your thoughts. And there's no such thing as stupid questions. So yeah, let's crack on, guys. I've got some slides and we can go through them. So the IRF is the International Rafting governing body. They're the governing body for rafting all over the world. And basically, pre 1997, there wasn't really any governing body that brought rafting together from around the world. So the IRF was formed, and they decided to bring out a set of awards that will allow guides to demonstrate their guiding skills. So a set of guiding assessments. The assessments, an IRF certificate, they're not a license as such. They're a statement of your personal skills. So we'll just go through with them now. So when we talk about the IRF awards, they are for guides working on commercial trips. We have the Raft Guide Award for traditional paddle rafts and oar rafts. We also have a set of awards for safety kayakers. So for kayakers who are working as the set safety standard on a commercial rafting trip to provide safety. And then also, for instance, if you travel onto rivers where they have safety rafts, so for instance, the Futsalafu in Chile, there's also a commercial course, commercial learning and assessment for safety kayakers and safety rafters. The next two awards are quite new. They're called the Whitewater Guide Awards. And as the industry is changing, so are the crafts. So we now have the Whitewater Guide Cat A and Category A Whitewater Guide. They are responsible paddle. And then a Whitewater Guide Cat B is predominantly for your river tubes, hydro speeds, river boards. They're the crafts where you spend more time in the water and you're using your own hands and arms for propulsion. So we do a set of awards based on all these disciplines on a commercial trip. The award levels are quite simple. We start off with a provisional guide, and a provisional guide is a guide that has very little or no commercial training experience or commercial rafting experience, and they generally do a 5-day whitewater guide school which covers guiding rafts, customer care, and whitewater rescue. Once you've then qualified as a provisional guide, you can take your guide assessment, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And the guide being the person in charge of the raft. We also have award levels for safety craft, so safety kayakers and safety raft, and then also the trip leader. So the trip leader is the person who's designated to be the manager of the trip, and they would be in charge of a flotilla of rafts. Working above the trip leaders, there are instructors. Instructors are the people who will deliver IRF guide and trip leader assessments. So they're like your examiners. Above instructors, you have assessors. There are currently about 12 or 13 active assessors around the world. And the job of the assessors is to basically be the ambassadors of the IRF and the IRF GTE system. And assessors represent the highest level of qualification within the IRF GTE. You see on the bottom here, I've put level 3 assessed on class 3 whitewater. So basically with any award, there is a designator on the side that will say level with a number. So if a guide has been assessed on class 2 whitewater, they get a guide award level 2, which means they've been assessed on level 2 whitewater. If we have a trip leader, a level 4 trip leader and a level 4 trip leader has been assessed and deemed competent to guide a trip on class 4 whitewater. So you can have the different levels within the system. You don't have to go through each award and start as a provisional guide. So for instance, for an American audience, if you've been guiding for 10, 15 years and you think, hey, I'm already at that trip leader standard, you would attend a workshop and you would have your personal skills assessed, and then you can go straight for a trip leader assessment. You don't have to do provisional guide, normal guide, and work your way through the system. So they're the award levels. When we run a workshop, to keep everything fair and simple around the world. So the thing you have to remember is that when we run a workshop in America, when we run a workshop in Russia, Africa, New Zealand, Australia, it's the same scoring system that works throughout the world. And we will give you a number of tasks, and for each task, there is a score assigned to the task. So the points start from 1 to 5. If you score 1 point, unfortunately, that's quite poor, so you're not necessarily going to pass that area of the assessment. If you score 2 points, still quite weak, unfortunately, not strong enough to pass the assessment at that time. If you score 3 points, that's pass. You're at a good level. You passed. 4 points is good, so it's a strong pass. 5 points means you're very strong. Excellent, that's a pass. Well done. And this scoring system is applied right the way through the system for each of the tasks. So what are we going to test you on when you turn up to come and do an IRF guide or a trip leader workshop? What are you going to be tested on? Well, let's go through that right now. If you turn up to be a guide and you want to be assessed at guide level, you must score 3 points or more in each assessment area to pass. If you wish to be a trip leader, you must score 4 or more points in each area of the assessment to pass. And again, if you want to be an instructor, you have to pass with 4 points or more in each area of your guide assessment. So the areas are right here now. So the assessment areas are your pre-departure safety demonstration or your safety talk. So that's going to be assessed and that gets scored 1 to 5. Your personal raft guiding skills and crew interaction. So we're going to sit in the boat with you for 30 minutes and we're going to see how you raft. We're going to look at your whitewater swimming skills. We're going to look at your throw bagging skills, your rope work skills. We're going to see if you can flip and reflip a boat in flat water. And then we're going to go through the IRF written paper. And we're going to talk about each of those now. So the pre-departure safety demonstration is quite simple. During your workshop, you'll sit down, you'll be given a group of students and you'll go through your pre-departure safety demonstration. Within the demonstration, there are a few key points that must be mentioned in order for you to pass the demonstration. The key points are introduction and PPE. So what do we mean about introduction? We mean guide name, name of the river, classification. You're going to paint a picture of what the trip's about for the customers. We're going to talk about PPE depending on where you're operating in the world. Keep the sunblock on, don't unzip your dry suit, depending on where you're operating. But always definitely don't undo your PFD, don't take your helmet off. We're going to talk about the paddle and the T-piece and the hazards that we all know come along with holding a paddle in your hand. We're going to look at sitting in a raft and how to paddle. You're going to have to talk about whitewater swimming, including don't stand up, how to receive a throw bag, and what to do in case of a flip or falling out of the boat. And these are the bare bones of a safety demonstration. So for somebody's safety demonstration to be at a pass level, all of these subjects, they must be spoken about in the safety talk. We're then going to look at personal rafting skills and crew interaction. So the assessor will be sat with you in the boat for 30 minutes. We're going to look at crew interaction and commands, your rapid reading and river running, choosing the right line, forward and reverse ferry gliding, eddying in, eddying out, how you set off and land the raft, trip communication, signals and spacing. So we're looking at your role as a guide within the raft. Can you handle your crew? Can you handle your boat? Going to look at your whitewater swimming skills. We're going to be looking at how you enter whitewater, defensive and aggressive swimming techniques. Going to look at ferry gliding as you're swimming through features such as wave trains, eddies and holes, swimming with a paddle. When we're doing this, we're also looking at your fitness levels. So again, we'll be looking at fitness levels and can you swim? Next area is the IRF standard throwback skills test. If you're a follower of the Gear Garage, I think Zach holds the world record for studying the IRF throwback test. The throwback test on the workshop, believe it or not, it doesn't matter how experienced the guides are, everybody gets a little bit nervous here, and it takes a lot of time to practice this. As an instructor, we're prepared for this on a workshop. We want you to pass, so we're going to give you all of those top tips. The way the throwback session works is that your swimmer will be 10 meters away from you, hopefully in some nice fast moving water, and you will throw them with the bag. The bag must land within reach of the swimmer. You will then belay the swimmer into the side and tell them to let go of the rope. As you bring in that swimmer into the eddy, 25 seconds later, another swimmer is going to come down, and you need to hit that swimmer with the same bag with a recoiled throw. And that's the test. It sounds quite easy, but under a little bit of pressure, I've seen a lot of people fumble and make a mess of it, but they've come good in the end. We're going to look at your rope work skills. We're basically going to look at tying a 3-to-1 or a Z drag inside 5 minutes using your own equipment. We're going to look at the anchors that you choose. We're going to look at construction of load distributing anchor on the boat. For those people speaking in old money, a load sharing anchor. We're going to use progress capture. So we're going to look at using prussiks. We're going to look at the knots. What knots did you tie and why did you tie that knot, and the equipment selection. And we're then going to do the IRF flip test. The flip test, to make sure that it's the same test throughout the world, is always done in flat water or in a very small eddy, very slow eddy. The flip test starts when you touch the boat. You will swim out to the normal raft with a paddle, put your paddle inside the boat, climb inside the raft, flip the raft upside down, climb back up on top of the raft without losing your paddle, count the imaginary heads in the water, flip the raft back over, climb back in. And for that, you have 2 minutes. You don't have any commercial guests with you. You're on your own. And this is done in flat water. This is one of the areas that some people struggle with. So as an assessor, I look to run this pretty early on in a 3 or a 4 day workshop. And then if people do struggle with fitness, technique, or strength issues on the first day, this can be noticed, and we can help that person further into the course. As an assessor, as somebody from the IRF, we want you to pass. It's not like a driving test where sometimes you feel that they don't want you to pass. We actually want you to pass. So as an assessor, as an instructor, it's our job to really give you the tools to pass. I'm going to do a written test, which is a 25 multiple choice written paper, which is there really we're looking for knowledge gaps that we can fill in. If somebody does absolutely perfect in their swimming, their throwbagging, their rafting, and they fail a written test, it's not necessarily mean that they're going to fail the entire workshop. And as the notes say there as well, if reading or writing isn't your strong point, or if the paper in English or Spanish, or if we don't have the paper in your spoken language, we can also do a verbal test. So once you've done that, you're then going to be an IRF guide if you have a valid first aid book, a valid first aid certificate, and a logbook of your experience. For those that are a little bit more experienced, you can do a trip leader assessment. To qualify for a trip leader assessment, you must have scored 4 points or more in each area of your guide assessment. You'll then be able to do a trip leader assessment, and the trip leaders assessment by far on most workshops are the part where people really learn the most, they have the most fun. And for me, trip leader assessments really bring the workshop together. So what happens on a trip leader assessment is that we'll have a trip leader assigned. We'll move the trip leader off to one side, and we'll give him some guides and a safety kayak and a crew, maybe even depending on the size of the course, another rescue raft. And then the instructors will go downstream and set up a mock commercial trip emergency scenario. So it might be dealing with a flip raft that has multiple swimmers. It might be dealing with a pinned boat. It might be dealing with an entrapment issue. What we're looking for here are the leadership qualities, and we're looking at how the trip leader candidate manages the scenario. So we're going to look at the situation assessment, decision making, communication, and conducting the rescue. The trip leader assessments really, when you ask a lot of guides when they come off a workshop and they say, what was the part where you had the most learning, a lot of them will say the trip leader assessments. A lot of people that come on the workshops potentially would like to deliver IRF courses, so they will hang around and they would like to do an instructor assessment. To be an instructor, you've got to have scored 4 and above on a trip leader assessment. So that means you've got to have a high standard of guiding. You've got to be an experienced trip leader. You need experience working on multiple rivers, ideally around the world or in different states. And on an instructor assessment, what we're going to do is we're going to give you some subjects to teach. And we're going to look at your teaching style. Did you use the right tools? Are you giving good demonstrations? Are you observing and analyzing your students? Are you giving them the right feedback? Are you setting the correct goals? So what normally happens is you would do a 3 or a 4 day guide workshop with a trip leader assessment, and then at that point the workshop will finish, and then we spend the next 2 days looking at instructor qualities. So we're going to teach you how to teach. We're going to teach you how to structure a workshop. We're going to teach you how to understand and how to implement an IRF workshop. At the end of that, you'll do a presentation, or you get to teach some skills, you'll get to teach something, and at the end of this, you then become a provisional IRF instructor. With provisional IRF instructor status, you're not quite ready yet to run your own workshops alone. The provisional instructor certificate allows you to do is to work as an assistant instructor on other workshops until you're ready for your final assessment. And your final assessment is you will be followed by an IRF assessor, and we will follow you throughout the whole workshop process with regards to how you plan the workshop. We're there with you when you run the workshop. We're then going to look at all of your administration after the workshop. If this is all up to the right standard, you then get signed off as a full IRF instructor, and you're able to run your own IRF instructor course, your own IRF guide and trip leader workshops around the world. So that's basically the workshop in a nutshell. So if Zach could rejoin us, it'd be great to have some questions and have a bit of a chat.
Hey, Mark. Oh, I get the microphone close. Thanks for doing that. I wrote down a bunch of questions as you were doing that. And I have one from Willie Bum Bum I'll get to in a second. If anybody has questions, put them in the comment section below and we'll pull them up for Mark. But the first one I have is, like, why would people take an IRF course? Like, what is the value in having an IRF guide or trip leader certification?
All right, there's a few answers to that, Zach. The first one is, in some countries, if you want to be a raft guide, you've got to have the IRF certificate. So, for instance, Austria is the IRF certificate is used as standard. A lot of companies now, especially in countries where there are no requirements to have a guide award, a lot of companies are using the IRF standards and saying, okay, the government are not going to ask you for an award or a proof of your level of rafting, but we are gonna ask you for an IRF. We want to know what standard you're at. So there's the need to have the award, and then also the workshops are great for learning best common knowledge from around the world. You know, you're going to get 10, 15 people from all around the world. If you look at the last workshop we ran with you, you know, we had people coming from Ecuador, UK, all over the world. It's a great way to share best common global practice. What I see from my travels are a lot of people in communities get trapped in that little community, and they'll be practicing things that they've done for 10, 50, 20 years. And without fresh blood coming in, the rafting industry and the safety just stagnates. So nothing improves. And by having fresh blood coming in, different ideas, you know, it helps the community, it helps the industry, it helps the sport.
Yep. I've also had people ask me about how it compares to the New Zealand guide test. Do you want to talk
Yeah, I
about
mean,
which one's more difficult or why are differences?
I have both. Yeah, I have my Kiwi award and I've got my IRF award. They were both set up. I mean, I think when the IRF award, the Kiwi award's been is a lot older, and I've worked commercial as a guide in New Zealand. The two tests are quite similar. You know, they're both really, really similar tests. You know, they're going to look for a swim, they're going to look for a rope work assessment, they're going to look for your personal. So they're quite similar. Kiwi guide, because the Kiwi award is a lot older and obviously a little bit more established. Kiwi guides tend to have traveled around the world. So the Kiwi award was established a lot earlier. And a lot of people will say, you know, have you got the Kiwi award? For instance, if you go to Switzerland, you know, the Kiwi award is higher than their own internal award.
Wow.
So is it, you know, the Kiwi ticket is a really good one to have. But in terms of the level of the assessment, there's not that much between them at all in the slightest.
Okay. And then I'm going to pull up Billy Bum Bum's question. Can you find is the written test available online just to take?
It can be.
I mean,
It
it
is
feels
online.
like
It is online, but I can't give you access to it. But yeah, it can be online. Obviously,
feels
the test
like
can be on.
if you put the test online, people could take it, like, study it ahead of time and just come and pass.
Well, yeah, but they could. They could, but there's definitely some of the questions that are open for interpretation. You know,
That was my
it's
take when I took it. I wanted to get 100%. I don't like to not get 100%. You know, I'm one of those students. So I was sitting there agonizing over some of the questions because I could see both sides. And then really, that felt like the questions, it brought up good conversation. You know, I think
yeah,
I
that's
saw the
exactly
test as like a teaching tool. You know, like it was a way for us to have more conversations and talk about some nuances.
yeah. And you know, you go to some places around the world for a written test, and they start talking about, you know, collision regulations for rules at sea and buoyage and all that stuff. And no, this is the test was actually written by me, so it's it's aimed at we're looking at little bits of have you got any glaring gaps in your skill set? It's designed for you to pass. It's a great idea to sit down and do it quiz style with a few beers, total open book. Yeah, it's great. Maybe we could look at putting it online.
The thing I like about the test is if you take it, it's pretty straightforward. If you've been a guide, you're like, oh yeah, I know the answer to this. I know if you've never been a guide, you'd have a hard time passing, right? If you've never, you'd be like, you wouldn't understand some of the questions, you wouldn't understand some of the terminology. So
yeah,
it's kind of also, I felt like just a way to just double check you've spent time as a guide.
Yeah, and
because
I think sorry, Zach. I think something that's worth mentioning as well is that we're definitely looking at things today with the first world with American glasses on, but the written paper, the guides are from all over the world, and people come from different backgrounds and they have different levels of education. So if we want to make one paper that's potentially that everybody can pass around the world, it can't be too hard, and it is multiple choice.
Yeah. Lloyd Bumbum has another really good question. Do you see those questions, Mark?
Excuse me. Bloody COVID. All right.
Don't give it to me.
It sounds like you could not get level 4 or 5 war by making difficult. It sounds like you could not get. Yeah, again, Willie, in the perfect world, all of the assessors would be absolutely amazing. And, you'd go to a river and you've got that on tap, you've got the right amount of water, you've got your class level 4, you've got your class 5, and you could do that assessment. Unfortunately, sometimes, assessors don't all guides or instructors aren't always going by the same rule book. So for instance, we get a lot of people complaining, I got a level 4 award on this river, but my friend did it with another instructor and got a level 3 award. We're trying to cut that out as much as possible. Personally, I don't like to I won't run a level 4 assessment on a level 3 river because it's not fair on the student, it's not fair on me. So no, I don't agree with making difficult moves on a level 3 river. At the end of the day, it's still a level 3 river. So why would you give a level 4 guide award?
And Mark, I know there's a plan to give away level 4 awards or to award level 4 awards, but can you talk about how people get level 5 awards? Because I know that pathway is a little bit different.
Yeah, level 5 awards. So it used to be many years ago, you would get a level 4-5 award, and that meant you could work commercial on level 4-5. But really around the world, how many people are actually commercially guiding on class 5? And to run a workshop on class 5 means, by definition of class 5, if you have an accident, someone's a high chance of injury, or someone's going to get really messed up. So we stopped doing assessments on class 5 whitewater, and now we do assessments on level 4. So if a candidate wants a level 5 guide award or a level 5 trip leader award, they need to pass a guide assessment at 4 or 5 points, probably 5 points, every area of the assessment on level 4 water with 5 points, and they then have to present a logbook with a selection of commercially run class 5 rivers around the world. And then that logbook 9 times out of 10 will end up in front of me, and from that we will then go and we will check that logbook. We will speak to operators and we will do our homework on that guy. We don't get that many applications for level 5.
Yeah, it seems like, to me, I feel like level 4 is kind of the highest level most people would want to get. Level 5 is sort of a unique circumstance. I can't think of anywhere in the world. Does anywhere in the world even require you to have a level 5 award?
I was just thinking there's no that requires you to have a level 5 award, but how many places around the world, and there might be some places in the States, but how many places are there where they're actually commercially running class 5?
It's pretty rare. Yeah.
Yeah. And you get a lot of people that will advertise class 5, but a lot of rafting operators will oversell a product to create more.
No, operators don't do stuff like that. I'll have a few more questions. Again, if anybody else has questions, just leave them in the comments. In the throwback test, You said you have 3 chances to take it. What if you don't pass it? Are you just done with the course? I mean, let's say day
No,
2, you're in a 5-day course. Day 2, you go out there and you just like you struggle because people, especially U.S. guides, I struggle. I remember I took my course. The international guides crushed it. All of us American guides, we were struggling. And the course I taught last year, it was also really hard. Um, is there a little leeway in terms of like passing it?
I would, if I'm in a workshop and what I know, what I've witnessed, and it was the same with your workshop, you'll stand there and you'll be there for an hour and everybody will fail.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, one person will get it, and then everybody will start to get it.
Yep.
And with everybody, everyone gets a little bit of assessmentitis, as we call it. You get a little bit nervous on assessment. I would, and I've done workshops where I've said, okay, let's leave throwbagging alone for today. And then, at night, let's get a few beers, get a throwbag, get out on a lawn somewhere and practice and get top tips. And then go back and try it the next day. I'll do that. If somebody's still not good enough, then we've got to look at maybe giving them a provisional guide award. And what they would then have to do is when the workshop finishes, they'd get their provisional guide based on the fact that their throwbag standard needs to be raised. So they then need to go away and do a throwbag assessment. Again, if they can do a throwbag assessment in front of an instructor, that's great. If not, we need to look at the candidate, look at the surroundings. And for me, I've had where guides have sent me a video of them doing their throwback when they've not done it. It takes the pressure off them, and I'm happy for that. But that is only with a student that I've worked with where
Yeah.
I've thought, you know what, if I'm not stood anywhere near them, they'll probably pass. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is it might be a student that's going for a trip leader assessment, or it might be a student that's hanging around for the trip leader assessments. And we can actually stage the trip leader assessments so that that person is on the spot with a throwbag in their hand during a live assessment, and they're going to get a throwbag. And they don't know they're being watched, but they're being watched,
Yeah.
and they'll do a throwback without thinking, and that's another way of doing it. Because it's like I said, we want them to pass.
Yep. I'm going to get to MO in your question in a minute, but you mentioned trip leader assessment. I just want to say, when we finished our 3 days of assessment with you, when on a trip leader assessments, you said, guys, this is going to be the best part of the course. And you're right. I love the trip leader assessments. I was super nervous, because your peers are watching you and you're being judged. I was really nervous, but before it happened, when it was going on and afterwards, I'm like, that was so much fun. I could do these all day long. It's like being a guide and given like a video game you got to play. A real life, like I gotta move this person here, move that person there. You do this safety. Let's count these people. And so you get spun around and you have to solve some sort of mayhem. And it's really, really, really fun. And I would love to be given an opportunity to just solve these all day long, right? Just like turn me around, give me another one, give me another one. It's just really fun. So we found that to be the best part of the course. I just wanted to back that up. I can't say enough about how cool that part is for
You've got to find
guides.
there's definitely a fine line you've got to find there. That you've got to take that fine line, because you can get some instructors that will, they'll just totally blow up the entire trip leader scenario. You'll get a scenario that takes 3 or 4 hours and it involves walking back upstream with rafts and on and on. You've just got to keep it to, what will happen on a commercial trip. And, something I tend to do as well is when I'm doing a trip leader assessment, if I've seen an area with the candidate, if I have a trip leader candidate, if there's an area that I think they're weak on, I will incorporate that into their trip leader their trip leader test.
Yep. We had to do 2 of them. We had to do 8 of them in 2 days last year. And I was the whole time was freaking out about time. Just let's keep this, once it's done, let's keep this moving because we have more to do. But it was 2 really fun days. We have another question here from MON about how do you assess customer interaction?
I just say, to the guides, when we guide, we all get into that set pattern and that set way of speaking and how we communicate with our guests. So for me, it's, what? Yes, everybody is a guide in this boat, but you're in charge of the boat. This is your moment to shine. Just communicate with your your people, your crew, as you would a normal crew. So I've guided all over the world, and I'll give you two examples of what would be a standard guiding. So, for instance, you get to the top of a class 3 or a class 4 rapid, and you know there's the potential for people to fall out of the boat. You know there's going to be a big hit where you might lose a tube and flip. You know that something's coming, and you'll get a guide that'll get to the top of the rapid and they'll just say forward, and down you go. That's not guiding. That is not the standard of guiding that we want to see. You'll go to the same river with a good established guide who's got that customer interaction, and a good established guide with good customer interaction will get to the top of the rapid and say, right guys, in this rapid, there's big waves, expect big waves. You're going to paddle hard. If you fall out, we want you to swim to the right, or do whatever the protocol is for a recovery on that rapid. And for me, that is excellent interaction with your guests, because you're painting a picture of what to expect. You're telling them what to do if it doesn't quite go right, and it just makes for a much safer, professional, more enjoyable trip. So I hope that answers your question, Mr.
How do
Owen.
you assess that, though? I think the question is, how do you assess that in an IRF course?
I'm just sitting there and I'm watching.
Okay.
I'm just going to sit there and I'm going to watch, and I'm going to look at the rapid, and I'll be sat there and I'll just watch the guide and I listen to how they do it, and straight away if the guide has got the goods, they've got the interaction. Okay, guys, there's a rapid coming. This is what we're going to do. Whereas someone who's not got the interaction, or the traditional burnt out guides, okay, forwards. That's not good customer interaction.
So you're assessing it when you're in the raft with them, watching how they talk to them. And now the people in the boat aren't real customers; they're other people in the course, but they're the guide you're assessing is supposed to be treating them as if they were normal commercial guests.
Yeah, I mean, we say that we treat you as normal commercial guests, and that makes life a little bit easier for the guide that's being assessed. But even if you're good enough, you can say, right guys, you don't have to be commercial customers, just paddle and do exactly as I say and do as I do. And for a really good, strong, confident guide, doesn't matter if you've got commercial customers in the boat or fellow peers, you should have the communication skills.
Sorry, I had to turn the propane off. A flame just went out,
Hey,
but the propane was going. So, Peter, I'm going to get to your question here in a second, but first, I want to preface it with something else and ask. I think there's some confusion about what an IRF workshop is. Is it a class, or is it like a test?
Both. Okay. It's both.
Like if you're a world-class guide and you know everything, will you learn anything?
You were in the first course, yeah.
What?
You were on
I like
the first course.
I like to think. Yeah, I like to think I'm a world-class guide that knows everything. And I came into the course thinking I knew it all, and I learned things. I'm from you, but from the other students, and I shared new insights on things and saw new ideas. So yeah, I mean, I definitely. I just want to make that clear. Like, I think some people think this is just a course where they're learning things, but it's kind of it's a examination with some learning as well.
Every day is a school day.
Yeah. So, Peter has some questions here. Is your mindset on a trip always the what if game? And I think he gives a little bit of more information. It means constantly asking yourself, what would I do if this happens here?
I wouldn't say it's what if. It's my question when I'm guiding, especially when I'm personally guiding, because I still guide, is what have I done? Have I prepared the crew? Are my crew prepared for this? Have I covered my back? Have I backed myself to win? Okay, is there a rapid up here where there's a chance to the flip? Is this rapid known to flip people? Have I told my crew what to do in case of the flip? So it's not, I'm not, if this happens, I'm preparing my crew. I'm asking myself, have I prepared the crew to deal with that river? But yeah, it's a good point. It's a good question, Peter. That what would I do if this happens here? And I am getting a bit old now, and I tend to guide on one river up in Iceland, which has got a few really nice surprises on it. And I've pretty much, if you've been a guide, an established guide on any river, you're talking, upwards of 1,000 runs on the river. You've seen a lot of what can happen, so you're prepared for it anyway. Obviously, every year there's going to be something you've not seen before, but you're pretty much prepared for everything.
And Peter's next question is, do you cover this in the course? And that's why I asked the question before, because it's not something that's covered in the course, but it's maybe a discussion that would come up during the course. So like there's not like a course curriculum that says teach these things. The way the course works is here's all the assessments, assess all the guides based on these assessments. And then through those assessment, hopefully side conversations come up where everybody learns. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, it's sharing common best practice. It's sharing what's working better. What works for me might not work for somebody else on their river. But I definitely like to, when I do a workshop, for me, one of the greatest things I talk about is the safety demonstration, the safety talk at the start. A lot of people think that the safety talk is all about getting across all of this technical information. And yes, that is true. It's what the safety talk is. But also for me, the safety demonstration is my opportunity to stamp my authority on the trip and say, right, okay, now we're starting. You're going to listen to me. You're going to do what I say. And a lot of that comes from a lot of subliminal stuff that's through body language, how you position the raft and what you do. And that type of stuff is taught on the course.
Is it always taught in every course?
Obviously, not every IRF course. It depends on the instructor and the crew. But on my courses, it's a lot of things I teach. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing that so people understand about the IRF, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is just my impression, Mark, is that like again, there's assessments, and so you're being assessed on your safety talk, and so you can just give your safety talk and be assessed, but a really good instructor will then listen to your talk and say, "Hey, you could have done better if you
Yeah.
faced the guest a different way. Hey, you kind of started off a little bit quick. You didn't really like warm up the crowd. You just jumped into it.
Mm-hmm.
You sounded robotic, like you've given it a million times. Like, so you get, there's not like a course, like there might be a talk. I know Dustin and I last year, we gave a little presentation on how to give a safety talk first, but that's not always going to be there. And the feedback you're going to get comes, it's not an official part of the course, but the feedback comes from that individual instructor with their feelings.
I mean, the feedback is actually an official part of the course. There's the when at the end
That's
of the
true.
course, at the end of the course, you get a feedback sheet which will give you your score for each area of the assessment and the areas that you need to improve on, the areas you did really well at, and that will be given to you verbally, and you've then got a piece of paper to go
Yeah,
away
that's true.
and take away.
Cool. Jeffrey
Yeah.
says, thank you. Yeah, cool. Thanks for watching.
Nice.
And Willie Bum Bum talks about over briefing a rapid. Any thoughts about that? Can you over brief a rapid?
Yeah. Especially it's the type of one where you say, right, okay, we normally get a flip in here, we get lots of swimming, you get down, the customers' faces don't even get wet, and you're like, I would sort that. Yeah. So yeah, you can overbrief a rapid, but one of the classic words I say is, when you're guiding guys, if we get this rapid right, it'll feel like nothing. If we get it wrong, listen to what I'm about to tell you and do as I say. So I'm sure you've been there, been with me. But yeah, you do tend to get. I don't necessarily talk about on what they're going to see and on. I talk more about what you're going to feel, what they're going to expect, and then also what to do. For me, the end game on that rapid is they know what to do if they come out of the boat, or they know what to do to stay in the boat most.
Yeah, my rule, most of my guiding, I think the most difficult guiding I do is actually leading inflatable kayaks now, because I'm in a raft with people guiding the boat, but it's actually like giving instructions to kayaks to do their own thing behind me. And my rule is never more than 3 pieces of information. And that's just my personal rule, because once you give more than 3 pieces of information, those 3 become diluted and it's just too much. Like
Yeah,
people that guide kayaks, like, hey, okay, you're gonna start right, then you're gonna go left, watch out for the rock, go through the hole. There's gonna be
yeah,
something here, and then end up at the bottom. And if you swim, go here. And people just like say, they say, do you understand? They go, yeah, I understand, but they don't
Yeah.
understand. Instead, I'm like, hey, start right, go left. If you
Yeah.
swim, swim to the left. That's the
Yeah,
most information I will give people.
I think the big one I was, if you fall out, smile, hold your paddle, swim back to the boat. If you can't get back to the boat, hold your paddle, smile on your back feet up, don't stand up. If you flip, smile, hold your paddle, stay with the boat.
Yeah,
That's the most I get. Yeah.
lots of smiling. You love
Yeah.
your smiling.
Yeah.
Here's Peter talking a little bit, referring to the last comment, I think.
Yep. And this is a classic example, Peter. People that speak English as a first language, we tend to go into, we really go into way too much depth. British guides, if you ever watched the British guides do a safety demonstration, way too much depth. So what I like to say is I don't call it a safety talk, because when we talk, as Zach said, 3 things we forget. So that's why I call it a safety demonstration. On a workshop for somebody like yourself, I would hand you the challenge of, can you do a safety demonstration without speaking? And I think we tried this on your workshop, Zach.
You had me do it.
Yeah, you do a
I
safety
was the one.
demonstration.
Yeah. It was
Um,
hard, and I would say I learned a lot doing it. I sometimes I
yeah.
catch myself in a spot on my safety talk or my safety demonstration, like, how do I communicate this without words? It was good practice.
Yeah. But yeah, challenge yourself to do a silent safety demonstration. Actions speak louder than words. So for me, a safety demonstration is 75, 80% practical demonstrations, 15, 20% talking. And
I think
I raft in Europe, so I'm rafting with a lot of people that don't speak English as a first language.
Yeah, I think that's a point you made to us really well, because in the US, we're so used to just guiding people who speak English. We speak English, they speak English. And when you came to do the course with us, you reminded us, like, you might be doing a safety demonstration to somebody who doesn't speak English or speaks a little bit of English. And so reminding us of sort of an international view of guiding, where a lot of places around the world, somebody is giving this safety talk in their second language to a variety of speakers in the audience. And so
Yeah.
keeping that in mind in the talk, not just like focusing on how we are in the US.
Yeah.
Do you see that question?
Depends really on Chris. It depends really on where is the workshop being run. You might look out and have a workshop run on a river that inside out. A lot of guides have to travel to come and do a workshop, especially for you guys in the States, because the workshops are few and far between. For me personally, as an instructor, when I have a guide that works on that river, I'm going to push them on their personal guiding skills. I'm going to make them make the eddies they don't normally make. A classic example is the Tara River in Bosnia. It's a class 2-3 run. The guides get on at the top and they don't make a single eddy or ferry glide. They do a whole 12, 13K trip, and at low water, the river becomes really technical, and these boys can really move the boats really well. Some really good guiding skills. And then the moment you ask them to make an eddy, ferry glide, or do anything with the boat pointing upstream, a lot of them struggle. So for a guide that does work on a river, normally you're going to push them by making them run lines, eddies, ferry glides that they wouldn't necessarily do, and push them.
Yeah. The course, Chris, that we do here in the gorge, nobody's seen these rivers before. They're being assessed on rivers they don't know. So it's a real test of their skills. Thanks, Arnold, for the nice comment. And this is AJ. AJ's a friend of mine who lives here in Oregon, who's a pretty prolific guide.
So, I don't understand this properly. We're talking about...
He's asking, like, do you think this is more valuable than like a woofer or a WEMT? So if you had a choice between an IRF workshop and an EMT course, a wilderness EMT course, which do you think is more valuable for guides?
It depends what your needs are. What are you going to use? Are you going to use the skills learned in an IRF workshop when someone drops down with a heart attack on the trekking trail? It depends where you're going to be. Where are you spending your time? What are you doing? You guys are lucky. You can get WEMTs all over the States. We can't get them so much in Europe. Um, I would say if you've done WAMTs in the past and you're doing that, you're on that research and you're constantly doing research, go try something different for your personal development, for your skills. I mean, as an IRF guide, you've got to have a valid first aid certificate anyway. I would definitely, I'm not going to answer that for you. I'm going to say, look at your
It's a
needs. What are your
really good
needs?
question.
Yeah.
It's a
What
really
what
good
what are your
question.
needs? Yeah.
So AJ, I think, because I know AJ's a really good guide. Like, he's a solid guide. I don't think you need this course. I think you would get a lot out of it, though, to bring back to the company, because AJ like has management responsibilities and trip leading responsibilities. So I think what happens in the US a lot, like you mentioned earlier, Mark, is we get kind of like each community, we kind of like learn a certain way of doing things and we don't break outside that. And so a course where there's, people in the course from around the country and around the world. I mean, AJ, you're not going to learn how to flip a boat faster, probably. AJ's a stud, right? He's not going to be able to necessarily throw a throwback better, but the time with those other guides will kind of open up, just like new techniques will come in and new ideas. And I can tell you, those of us that took the course with Mark, we all thought we were, God's gift to rafting and knew everything. And every single person at the end was like, yeah, we picked up a bunch of tips and tricks. And so I think, and from Mark, but not just Mark, but from everybody else in the course, because the course was just full of really prolific guides. What do you think about that?
Hmm. I love doing courses, and I've always wanted to, I've always wanted to do a WEMT course in the States. Yeah, it depends. I'm going to stick with what I said. It totally depends on what your needs are. Are you a trip manager? Are you working as a trip leader on a river where you are the person responsible for doing first aid on courses on trips, and you do a lot of first aid? Then I would maybe think about doing the EMT course. Are you at that period in your life where guiding is, you're still getting your head around guiding, you're not 100% on your guiding, there's still stuff you want to learn on your guiding, I'd maybe do the IRF course first. Entirely up to you.
I think you'd have more fun in the IRF course. It's actually pretty fun. Like, especially like we talked about, the trip leader part is just it's just fun. I really enjoyed that part a lot. I have one more question. I think unless there's more questions, we'll shut this down. And it has to do with the flip test you mentioned earlier. And in the flip test, you start outside, the boat's upright. You start in the water, and you have to touch the boat, and that's when the timer starts. Jump in the boat, flip it over, jump in the boat, flip it over, jump back in the boat. So you have to get yourself back in the boat 3 times, which I see as sort of a physical fitness test, right? Like, not
No, you'd have
everybody.
to get yourself into the boat twice, but on top of the boat.
Don't you have to get yourself back? Like, yeah, you have to get yourself, but there's 3 times you have to get on a boat.
Yeah.
So, and physically, that can be hard for some people. Like, some people just don't have the physical fitness. And I can tell you, when I look around at guides on some rivers I visit, I can tell you a lot of these guides maybe can't even get in the boat once. So if that's the case, what do you do? Like, what is a student, if a student doesn't have the physical fitness to get back in the boat, but they're really good guides, what do you do?
I think you've got to look at looking at what are they can they not get back in the boat because it's a technique or a strength issue, or is it they've been guiding, drinking beer, having too many burgers, and they've got to sort their fitness out? Is it what the two is it? So there's a few options you've got. I guide in a lot of cold water. Taking a swimming in cold water, and you guys have got cold water up there as well, is it's gonna zap your energy a lot more than swimming around in your shorts and t-shirt in really warm water. So I work on a boat that's adapted with, for instance, grab loops inside the drainage holes to help me back on top of the boat. We've then got to look at, are there lines that you can put on a raft or the grab handle inside the raft that are going to get you inside the boat? So can you get yourself inside the boat? So a lot of people are the traditionalists where you've got to grab the OS line, which in States, a lot of boats don't even have the OS line, and get yourself back in. So for me, I'm going to look first at, look at the technique. Most of the time when people can't get into the boat, it's a mixture of technique and strength. A lot of people have a really poor technique for getting back inside the boat. So we're going to look at their technique. Is the boat set up properly? So if the boat does have the perimeter lines are they tight enough? We're going to look at the person's technique, and then we can start to introduce various different aids. So loops, grab lines in the loops, maybe even a sissy strap that goes across the boat, as long as it's compliant with the clean line principle. If they still can't get themselves in a boat, is that the person that you want taking your grandmother or your mother
I
down the
think
river if there's a
that's the
chance of rafting?
question. That's the question I think a lot of us have right now.
Yeah,
Like if you don't have the physical
yeah,
fitness to get back in the boat, then you're like, hey, you shouldn't. At that point, you shouldn't
yeah,
be guiding.
yeah, yeah. So I totally agree with you there, Jeffrey. It's for me, and I have times, where I can absolutely smash my flips and my reflips really quick, and then because I'm working in really cold water, sometimes I can struggle to get back in a boat. If I know I'm going to have a day where I'm going to struggle to get back into a boat, I make sure that boat is rigged so that I can get back in 100%.
Mm-hmm. I've been practicing my reflips when I go boat on the wind, a river near here, Mark. And there's one boat I flipped that I hadn't tried to get into the bottom yet, and the holes are so small for your fingers, I could not get back in the boat. So I
Mm.
immediately came home and put little loops there so I could get back in
Yeah,
next time. So it was
Avon rafts have really small. The traditional Avon
Avons
rafts
aren't.
are really.
This is worse than this was a wing, and it's just like really like this is worse than the
Yeah.
Avon. The
Mm.
Avon you can put a finger in the holes and pull yourself up, but this you had to like with cold fingers thread your fingers in. It was brutal. So I had to.
You're setting yourself up for an injury as well.
Yeah. So I mean, it's good to. I mean, I was good that I practiced it, but that day, if I'd used that boat, I would have failed for sure.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and then Willie Bum Bum asks, "Is there a minimum size boat for the flip
Ah,
test?" This is where
this is
this.
this is a really good point.
Yeah.
So you have the In River in Austria that goes through Austria and Switzerland, and the guides that raft in Austria are all rafting on 16 to 18-foot boats, which are quite hard to get back into. So they fail their IRF test, but they go further up the river into Switzerland and they do their test in a 14-foot boat, which they can flip and reflip no problem. So something we're doing now with the IRF, and this has been introduced to a lot of the new instructors, is that when somebody does their flip drill, in the notes for the assessment, the length of the boat is marked within the notes so that we know. And if somebody uses an aid to get back into the boat, that is recorded in the assessment, and also the emphasis is put on the guide to be able to report that to their new employer when they go for a job.
And this was also like why you might get a 3 or 4 or a 5, right? If there's
Yeah,
a bunch of boats out there and you just pick the easiest one and just
yeah,
do it, that's a 3, that's a pass. But if you take the hardest one and still do it pretty quickly without any aids, that's a 5.
hmm
And
yeah.
so like when you get
Or
scored, like there's a passing and then there's like an excelling.
yeah. I think what we normally look at for class four guides, flip drill is 45 seconds. A solid class four guide is doing the whole thing in 45 to a minute.
That's fast.
The
That's
quickest
fast.
I've seen is 37
That's
seconds.
fast. We were, I
Yeah.
mean, the course we did again, the you have 2 minutes. The course we did last spring, it was a lot of like a minute to a minute 15s and then a few like 50 seconds. So sub 1 minute's pretty fast.
Yeah.
I want to go back to AJ on this question. And I think it's interesting to compare the two. I think almost the IRF is good for a manager just to see, and IRF, of course, is good for like a manager or a trip leader just to get refreshed on best practices. But what would be really cool for is when we hired new guides, like new guides with some experience, because it's a way you can assess their ability. So, AJ, when you're hiring 3 or 4 new people a year, you don't always know, like, can they throw a throw bag? Can they flip? And so if you hired somebody new, say, hey, I need you to take an IRF course so I can get an assessment of you. So it's a good way as a manager for you to assess new employees. And so when somebody's applying to work for me now and I see they have an IRF level 4, I'm like, yeah, that person's competent. That person's amazing. And so I might hire somebody with level 4 over level 3. Or like I said, in the future, if you're looking at like hiring some guides, you might tell them a condition of an employment is that you pass the IRF test, or pass an IRF workshop, which can be done officially, or even like you could do it internally. If you knew the exam, you could just like give the same assessments to new guides, because you do want to make sure your guides can throw a throwback, give a safety talk, do the thing. So I think it has a dual purpose, like one, to get standards, and two, to make sure that people that work for you have a basic standard.
I think as well, if you've got guides that have been through a workshop and they've done a workshop, they're going to have they might have a safer approach of rafting at the end of the workshop. So normally, if they've got a safer approach of rafting, it's probably going to cut down on the amount of medical incidents that you're going to have.
Yeah.
Within the trip, hopefully.
I'm super curious if a WEMT is that much better than a woofer. Like I don't know.
My
But I've
perception is
taken an EMT class, I've taken a woofer, and nothing in the EMT class, hardly anything helped me, because every answer was put them on oxygen and transport them. Where the woofer class was like, here's how you can solve a lot of these problems, and here's how you can make some tough decisions. So I don't know what a WMT provides you beyond a woofer.
that's a good point.
And the last question that we have.
Yes is the answer. If that person has a disability and they're still able to manage and practice and manage all aspects of the assessment, there's no reason. We're proactive in getting as many people on the water as possible. I would also look at something I didn't mention in that screen in my presentation, was that there is a set of there's an award that's called a site specific, and the site specific is for people that work on and will only ever work on one section of water where the water never changes, the lines don't change, and we can always give somebody a site specific. So there might be a person with a disability who can't reflip a boat, but they're going to work on a section of river where they're not going to flip. We can give them a site specific award for that. So yeah.
Well, cool. That's the end of our questions. Mark, thank you so much for being here. It's probably like 1 o'clock in the morning for you, and it's probably dumping snow. I guess it's negative 30 degrees in Finland. But what a cool opportunity. Thanks for taking time to talk to us and
Thanks
share.
for having me back.
Yeah, and we'll do it again. Again, if anybody has, like, Mark likes doing this, I think I like doing this with Mark. So if anybody has any suggestions for future things that we could have Mark talk about, send me a note. That'd be really cool. We have one more comment. Oh no, that's not even a good comment. So with that, we're gonna say goodbye. Haldor's a friend of yours, right, Mark?
Yeah, it's dumping snow, Haldor, 11.
But thanks again, Mark, and we'll see everybody in whatever we do next on this channel.